Graeme Souness backed for a sensational return, and he might not be coming alone with Jose Mourinho linked to the dugout, Raskin shining on the international stage, HaGi slammed by his own country, and Barry Ferguson eyeing a £1 million exit for a Rangers loanee. Want to see these and more Rangers news? Stay until the end. We are the people, right? Picture this. You're sitting at home, the telly's on, and the name Graeme Souness flashes across the screen. But this isn't some nostalgic throwback. No, this is very much present day, because there's serious talk of the Rangers legend storming back into Ibrox, and he might not be coming alone. Graeme Souness, the man who lit a fire under the club back in the late 80s, has been backed for a return to Ibrox in a potential blockbuster move. And who's being linked to join him? None other than Jose Mourinho, the box office boss who's danced through dugouts at Chelsea, Manchester United, and Tottenham, and now finds himself at Fenerbahce. Let that sink in for a second. Souness and Mourinho together at Ibrox. Now, before you roll your eyes thinking it's tabloid fantasy, consider this. Souness has been spotted back at Ibrox lately, taking in Barry Ferguson's first home game as interim boss. And since then, Rangers have dumped Fenerbahce out of Europe and laid down the law in the old firm against Celtic. The buzz is real. Derek Ferguson, Barry's brother, is all for it. He's calling for Souness to come in behind the scenes, praising his aura, intelligence, and deep-rooted passion for the club. He even reckons Philippe Clement might have felt threatened by Souness before, but he argues rightly that anyone with Souness's experience should be welcomed, not shoved aside. And then there's Mourinho. That sly old fox hinted in a recent interview he'd be open to managing either side of the old firm. But come on, you know as well as I do, there's only one club in Glasgow with European pedigree and ambition, and it's not the green and grey mob from the East End. Imagine Mourinho prowling the Ibrox touchline, Souness in the director's box, and Barry Ferguson driving the dressing room. That's not just a management team, that's a statement to Europe, to Celtic, to everyone. But here's the £1 million question I want you to answer, and I know it'll ruffle feathers. Would you honestly be willing to welcome a man who said he'd manage Celtic just to get his genius in a Rangers tracksuit? Or is that line too sacred to ever cross? Nicolas Raskin. Remember the name, because if the Belgians didn't know it before, they certainly do now. Just days after getting his senior debut off the bench, the Rangers midfield maestro was handed a start for Belgium, and he absolutely stole the show. Up against Ukraine in a do-or-die second leg of the UEFA Nations League quarterfinals, Raskin slotted in beside none other than Kevin De Bruyne and made it look like he'd been there for years. 89 minutes, 75 successful passes, over 90 touches. He was dictating the tempo like a conductor in front of a world-class orchestra. The Belgian press couldn't get enough. Sporza praised his chemistry with Vanaken, while Nieuwsblad basically said he turned the middle of the pitch into his living room. Raskin played in an armchair. They wrote, that's how effortless he made it look. And let's not forget, this is a player who's already racked up 39 appearances for Rangers this season. 2 goals, 6 assists, a consistent presence, and never one to shy away from a scrap. Whether it's laying it on a plate or sticking a foot in, Raskin's become the heartbeat of that midfield at Ibrox. He showed it in the old firm, 1 goal, 1 assist, and Celtic chasing shadows. And now, with the Europa League quarter-final against Athletic Bilbao looming, you need players like Raskin, calm, clever, and clutch when it counts. Barry Ferguson knows he's got a gem on his hands, and the best part, he's only 24. This lad hasn't even peaked yet, but here's where things get juicy. With Raskin lighting it up for Belgium and Rangers in Europe, how long do you really think we can keep hold of him before a club from down south comes waving £20 million and tries to nick him away. Would you cash in if it meant strengthening other areas, or is he too important to ever let go? Well, it's never dull when HaGi's name comes up, is it? After slowly working his way back into the Rangers side this season, following that awkward contract standoff, Ianis HaGi had started showing flashes of his class again. 3 goals, 7 assists in just 20 games. Pretty solid for a player who was training on his own not long ago. But just as he was building momentum at Ibrox, he's taken a wee knock, this time from back home. Called up for international duty with Romania, HaGi came off the bench at halftime during their 1-0 defeat to Bosnia and Herzegovina. And while the result was already hanging by a thread, he couldn't do much to flip it. But instead of a fair assessment, what he got was a verbal volley from former Romanian international Cornel Dinu. Dinu didn't hold back, saying flat out that HaGi's never going to reach the levels of his father, Gheorghe Hagi. Fair enough, not many in world football ever have. But to call him a modest player and claim there's no son who ever outshone their famous father, that's not just harsh, that's lazy punditry. Comparing him to a national icon every time he misplaces a pass is exhausting, and it ignores what he has done at Ibrox. Let's be clear, HaGi has had to deal with injuries, mismanagement, and a club in flux, and still, when he plays, he offers creativity and vision. He turned up in big moments, delivered assists, and gave you something different in the final third when things were going stale. But here's the bigger worry. His contract's up at the end of the season. No long-term manager in place, no clarity from the boardroom. The writing feels very much on the wall. Unless something changes drastically, it looks like HaGi could be on his way out the door. And while he might not have reached his dad's heights, anyone who's been watching knows he's had his moments, the kind of moments that, in the right system with the right manager, could become consistent brilliance. Would you keep HaGi around for another contract, knowing what he can offer? Or is it time to stop clinging to potential and move on from a player who maybe just isn't the game changer we hoped he'd become? Barry Ferguson's got Ibrox buzzing again, and it's not just the results on the pitch. While the Europa League dream gathers pace and domestic fire still burns, Barry's also quietly shaping what could be the next Rangers squad, even if he's not guaranteed the job come summer. And one decision seems to be already made. Rabbi Matondo, Barry reckons it's time to part ways now. Matondo's Rangers career never quite caught fire. Injuries, inconsistency, and maybe the weight of expectation saw him fade into the background. Sent out on loan to Hannover 96 in Germany, the wingers rediscovered a bit of form and even bagged his first senior goal for Wales. Credit where it's due. But back at Ibrox, Barry's been clear. He hopes Rangers can strike a £1 million deal and move the winger on permanently. Ferguson didn't sugarcoat it either. He said it outright. Matondo was a high earner, never really involved, and Rangers could do with clawing back some of that original transfer fee. It's a refreshingly blunt bit of honesty, and one that suggests Barry's thinking about more than just tactics. He's thinking about how to rebuild, how to get value, how to make Ibrox a place of standards again. But it's not just Matondo. There are 10 loanees with uncertain futures. Kieran Dowell and Ben Davies are turning heads at Birmingham. Jose Cifuentes is out in Greece, but Aras want a discount on his £4.2 million buyout clause. There's youth players all over Scotland, Leon King, Adam Devine, Robbie Fraser, all trying to prove they deserve a shot back home. And while the fans are rightfully caught up in European nights and Barry's passionate sideline presence, the real work this summer will be about clearing out the wage bill and deciding who's part of this next chapter and who's not. But here's what you need to ask yourself. If Barry Ferguson stays on as permanent manager, should he be trusted to overhaul the squad, even if that means letting go of talented players like Matondo, Cifuentes, or Davies? Or are we rushing into another rebuild without a clear long-term vision. If you haven't seen yesterday's video yet, you're missing out. Explosive news about Rangers that'll leave every fan stunned. Go check it out now.